Sangye Jadon Zoye Chonam Loy Chanjo Bardo Dani Gyapso Sage Jinzo Jebe Sonam Je Lola Penche Sangye Shu Funan Chino
관계 도전이 좀 다왔던 제 방배치를 담배치는 던져서 고담 때라 차서 야다 지름치 진lem니 슈마다 봐 연된 신결면나라 리서요와 주의 주르시 뉴든지 비치와 템바다 슈웨지서 리단 티마진 가나렌 리치진 타말라 네바셈본년에 네베서 터진 타마난 점보마다 그래서 타단도 버쳐발라 따도 빠단데 머 찡길로 제소나 진체네 당한주 배 마타 마제베서나 배 제보 탐보 기보 시부연던다지 뭐예지 되는지 완전 난겨래 용겨래 뭐예 내주데 추이 주분나 진체네 배즉 남지 참해봐 대양 네배 선행용 지겐망 선행대한 지견도 좋아요. 라면은 소나지. 드니네 드니지 인자 즉 개와 니자마인 바 치마 펜절 안에 그바타도 답에 디키루야기 제나 따친디 단답에 뒤체 년랑 디갑라 주보레스 다던다 닝보다 때순거레스
There's a quote in the Lama Tsongkhapa's short text, The Foundations of All Knowledge, and beginning with the the movement of the our body and mind. It's like a like a bubble, and Geshe-la recited the whole kind of couple of verses, and but in those 2-3 verses, what in essence Lama Tsongkhapa is saying is that unless or until we ordinary people don't experience some kind of illness or pain, we never think reality of our own life. That is our nature of life being impermanent, momentary, uncertainty, and so. The reality is that it is impermanent, uncertain, momentary, and there are so many factors and conditions which could easily become the cause of our own death and dying. So without those awareness, our life kind of seems to be really happy and contented, and lots of satisfaction. So the point here is that we need to recognize and realize, the reality of our own life.
어떤데 인디가라? 된데 말. 지금 이니베 즉 카르보기지 기주데 간데스 두고 소놈 기소 간데스 사고 미게 와데 못베고니 미게베 이니베 즉 강린 주의 유 차서 뇽몬테죠 반탑 디자와 머리 바방탑 델렘백와야 다디 시부게 쳔보레 다디 메바테야 즉 오네 파게 즉 지마 지진지 용수서바 쳔딜레 tindigi enibe la shetuyer te kabore George Balde de Sungdo tindi yundu sheji namrama se ani tati tuna kar ngambechi omalen bajin zeda odape ngone ninku dondoji duine enibe dikituyagi pagi nyamlele kersewaji ine setale josewaji ta jogo ya miksemni sone enibe 지 군롱 근처 kerthare enibe 원다 녀가라 enibe 란리야 리섬의 슈다지다 eni 슈다다네 eni 야부중이나 eni 지수이란지 eni 강상에 그발에 지수이란 잠포집인더니 소나진지 지수이란지 그시 enibe 야부중메나 되는 교심지 eni 집하기 님부터 참고네 샤바체 교심지 두스제네 내가 집에이나 아니 오늘 mambe chudola niba karezo chudo omani tenetana chu omade tunchi chude jasha gore oda tena jinji jine ngarazo jaya mambo yorete jaya yevenani tonta ninku de ene pe ru ji shebajene di ene nyamlen kerefa chebaji gugore se sungores
So with the understanding of nature of our own life being, fragile, impermanent, and yet we need to use it in a best possible way, or make it kind of a meaningful life. And how can we do that in Buddhist practice? Not only kind of making this life happy, meaningful, but also thinking about future life. A long-term objective, and and for that, in Buddhist practice, it is important to understand, practices that needs to be adopted and practices that we needs to be abstaining from. And we talk about positive versus negative activities, and abstaining from negative or non-virtuous or unwholesome activities. Where does those negative actions or thoughts arises from? The causes of those, attachment, anger, hatred, whatever that might be, and what are the methods that we can abstain those, and then engaging in those method and technique so that we can get benefit from those. And to do that, however, Lama, great Master Atisha mentioned that our life is too short, yet the knowledge out there is too immense. So, it is impossible for us to kind of learn everything in this short life. So we need to be able to kind of really choose, knowledge or education, or which help us in such a way that it will make our life meaningful, not only in this lifetime, but as said before, in a Buddhist perspective, future lifetime too. So he used a kind of metaphor example of kind of this duck or geese able to kind of just drink milk when milk is mixed with the water. So so the point here is that among those many education, knowledge, learning, we need to able to kind of pick up the right thing that can be best kind of most useful for our own life. And having said that, then in our day-to-day life practices, beginning from beginning our day with kind of good intention, of course, and then at the end of day, again, being very much aware of your own thought. So beginning day with good intention, and then at the end of day, you just reflect back quickly how you spent your day, and if you did something negative or destructive, try to engage in the practice of purification or confession through application of 4 powers or 4 antidotes, and then generate that sense of regret, and then making kind of commitment not to repeating the same thing again in future days. And if you did something positive, virtuous, wholesome, good thing, rejoice in it, appreciate in it, and then again kind of remind yourself of engaging, doing same thing repeatedly in the future. So the point here is that, as said before, there are many things that if you go out and study, too many things to learn and study, but we need to able to make kind of good choice that can be beneficial, making our life meaningful, not only this lifetime, but future lifetime too.
아니 대가도 배대 가서 겐도서 디송도 배나 미 송바 첨보지다 손뒤 겐좀 망부 미 망부 투고에나 미르리니 똥라지 투고에나 미 똥라를 투근 대이나 곧 뒤져 윤리 뭐 시우진 거고 와다 뒤져 퉁퉁지나 타제라 미드 강가 캄파체즈나 루루지 아니 디셔에나 주소 가시지나 아니 배 돈다 인부도 제도 그래스 오다 뛰나 진짜네 나랑서 로정제데 셈기들이 두산때야 배 닝쿠데 뒤시다 마소나테 셈라 깜페 모두 디에네 지 배나 장주기 셈도 송이도 벨 따와다고 덴디라베 디 차시킨라서 빼미버 좀된데기 최경부부 기리시도 송야데 가지 자모텐중 나장주기 셈 유리케 돈달라 탑람을 숨셔서 제지 임바다 센터스 빼나 빼미서 살포송도 그기 진이 가서 봤던데니라 잠든 주스데 어다 이인도가 송야데 디 고바토야 또야 그 탑람나 수레데 디 용서지 장한데는 셰야 빼카우 뒤인 시우신 거고 와래 가지 직 장주기 셈기 유튜브만 임베 니제데 랑규젠데 제니 애니 뱅인중자네 애니 소소 둥알 민데바 랑라 삼노타바이나 소소 콤베왕기 애니 네 라와요레 디 가신레페나 니지 차고와레 어다도 수제니 니지 첨볼라 가서 토토지 냠는지 디 냠는지 바이나 디 랑슈 유풍 소소나 리우 랑신기 게임고와레 어다도 수제니 코 닝쿠 배차 비둥 뜨거든 나타 오니 주기 비비 유지지동 게 닝쿠디 숨이야라 어다띠 나진지는 가나서 냠는지는 너도지니 제셔바 지니 냠는지 와다 꽤 첨버리스
Krishna's teachers used to use an example of saying that, one a businessman when want to make a big decision, among many thousand other different individuals, instead of going kind of meeting each individual, it's more, of course, kind of meaningful, beneficial, in every possible kind of way to kind of gather in a hall and then just talk and decide in a short time. We apply need to apply same approach and method in kind of training our thoughts, training our mind, picking or learning those essential technique or understanding, such as the practice of altruistic mind, understanding of emptiness, those important points. Otherwise, when you look at the Buddhist teaching in general, we talk about 84,000 heaps of teachings. It's really kind of extensive, broad and intense. So, therefore, these important concepts, it's really helpful in kind of understanding the entire Buddhist thoughts. So, for example, in Lama Tsongkhapa's short text, Appreciation to Dependent Arising, he mentioned that whatever you're taught, everything is derivation from dependent origination concept. So that kind of understanding, and here the practice of altruistic mind or bodhicitta, the unique seed or cause of the bodhicitta is compassion, compassionate mind, and to have this kind of compassion practice, it is best to start from one's own experiences, from one's own practices. Just look at your own experiences and with compassion, how it is kind of benefiting you, how much it is needed for you. And when you are going through that process, we call that is understanding of renunciation. And if you kind of direct that kind of thoughts towards others, wanting to separate others from suffering, free from suffering, that is compassionate thought. And when you engage in this kind of practice, mentally, physically, then you are planting the seed of this altruistic or awakening mind. So when there is a seed planted, of course there will be a result that will follow naturally. So using the text that we are studying, such as like this short text, yet kind of short text kind of explaining really kind of some essential philosophical topic or practice, and therefore it is important to kind of use this small text for our own practices.
어다 대화해야 되나? 시 왕불 셈베 대화지다. 아니 난 이로 또발 셈베 대화지 니어레스. 시 왕불 셈베 대화데 두야 그 탑람데 레라레. 땡아랑서 그 뒤나 고코르들 다빼 고코르서 땡아서 빼 가서 리뷰 춘춘질랑 고코르 내가 디야 즉 오늘 세멘딩니 바게 디지 뭐다 차바던 데고 나베 가서 그래 차섬된 데 아니 베직 미기주 이런 walta와다 아니 베 나웬 라냠발서 바 아니 베 루이도 깡가베 간체 원베 일라 텐데긴 자지게 담바 디무 딘징기 파기 신슈고네 차섬되고네 용대긴지 오늘 즉 덴디세지 차르고도 지왕불 땡디 디 두야데레 라버차버 고 미게위 초도 슈체 인상 나랑 공부 슈중보였한테 두야레라 저 때는 가서 고 거르대게 거래 당오네 난 셈기 되기 될라 삼르지 따바이나 두야 카래 나랑 좀 아마니 디리 공부요 말해 난 셈기 되기 돌아 아니 디용라 뇽몽로 쫀들 따고네 단지 머리베 바기 현 통원에 아니 냠내 제바이나 때 난게 데키데 만다지 용그르스데 여름부지 양양도 숨도 왔어 띵원에 디리 다티 용할 자발라 지마 지진 지와 자발라 송이 도베 따발라 삼로 마탐 송이 도버서다 송이기 따발라 삼로 좀 마탐바 있나 다티 단지 머리베 바기 현 통투야 코나요 말에 거다 때 인도가라 딘내 전부 잡아라스.
And for the happiness that we are trying to seek and attain, we always talk about two forms or two type. First one being something that is totally related with our kind of physical senses, or physical organs, and second one being mental. And the first one, happiness or joy or pleasure, is much more easier than the second one to attain, to experience. And we are pretty much kind of engaged in that kind of pleasurable or happiness, and those related with senses, eye seeing beautiful attractive things, ear listening to nice sound or music, and those five senses. And we are engaged, we are spoiling ourselves in kind of engaging that kind of very limited, narrow, pleasurable experiences. Difficult to kind of enjoy that kind of happiness or joyful, because quite often we see many of these pleasurable sensations are mixed with attachment. There's a negative emotions in that. So therefore it's nothing not much difficult, and when compared to the second one, mental joy or happiness of the mind, much more difficult, because we are not much exposed to that kind of experience. And to begin with, we don't give that much attention to what is mind, what is emotions. We kind of very much neglect it, to begin with, the understanding of the emotion and the nature or the consciousness itself. And of course, whatever that is related with, happiness and joy, we are not much, we don't have that much exposure, we don't have that much understanding. And so therefore it becomes much more difficult, to reliable, a stable peace of the mind. So what is difficult here is that difficult in understanding what are the causes of those unhappiness of the mind. And we always talk about afflictions, defilements, and delusions, ignorance, the causes of our own suffering. But we don't know much about those, and we don't give that much attention. And more specifically in Buddhism, we talk about self-grasping thought, which is the root of all of these problems. And that's what His Holiness the Dalai Lama often talks about, the root cause of our own suffering. And in order to understand the root cause of all of this, suffering or cyclic existence or our existence, understanding of emptiness is inevitable. It's something that is must. And without understanding of emptiness concept or philosophy, it is impossible to understand, the opposite side of that emptiness, that is, self-grasping or truth-grasping.
또 세 니마지기 로상들라도 사무다이다가 맞아 야공마다 따다 gem갈진 두고 얼마다 야공마다 틈바다 찐 두고민도 삼롱문에 단데 도저 제기나 하고도 와 도저 맞이나 이 윤대 손이 들고도 가래 맞아 나 기기버주나 나지 대와주나 나 체지마도 요마르와 제산들이 남아 주변 나라 랑이 진지 우박군기 로ser 숭도와 우바 탐적이 자와래서 숭고라 우바 탐적 랑 진진생인데 연 진진데 연된 탐적이 중내에서 숭고라 대인도가 맞추지 산세 되게 됐다 따다 염갈 루도와스.
When we look at our own kind of daily ways of living, talking from Buddhist point of view, what we do is actually sort of exact opposite of what Buddha has been teaching us. Our life is very much focused upon this emphasis and importance of I and me and this self-cherishing thought, egocentric way of life. And that's what in Guru Puja text, when he says that self-cherishing thought is the door or beginning of all downfallments and negativities, and other cherishing thought is the foundation of all good. And so in a way, we are doing kind of exact opposite of what has been said here.
어떻든지 내가 빼자니 시니 여바데 돈다세 렌데 아니 윤도 라라 땅기 아니 현상 찌기 두스지나 텔랑 냠렌스기 얼마도 그소 루루 제디 갈라지 냠도 가버지인데 아니 디니 열살소나 에 야인도 단데나데 냠 아버지 연구가 말했어 윤 리가 말했어.
So actual practice, way of doing practice here is, when you read those texts and books, you try to understand the meaning and then try to implement those, meaning, what you learn in your day-to-day life, and try to kind of compare, are you actually kind of following those instructions or not in your actual life? And that is what we call practice. Practice is nothing other than that kind of doing, thing. Otherwise, we gathered here and then we talk really nicely and feels good, and then once we go out of this place, just doing regular things that what we have been doing is really not, actually a practice, and we are not engaged in any kind of practices.
소소지나 미슬링 좋아요 받에 땡땡 아주 명의도 왔어.
And if we make some effort, to change our life, to transform it in a positive way, we know through our own experiences that it's totally possible.
오다 뉴에 drugi 맞아야 돼다 걸도 첨부를 있어.
And something that we know from our own experiences that can happen, that can possible, and but still not doing it is a big contradiction in our ordinary livelihood.
오다 덴디 인디가랑 안 좋다. 오늘 가서 툭툭지. 란신 탐제 이득이 싸와대. 장주기 셈 라 냠는 지야들이 셈 귤레 깨기 싸와대 너데겠나 뒤자와 니신도 세대 싸와대 니시리 니제 고메라 딱 콘도 주주나네 담보랑 생기 동알 삼노다네 동알 때라니 빼 돌리기 로체나 ninjungsi korwa tijenla khabana nijesi korwa cheza ramatse jen duwa dungale kyomde gilochi nepro gogudo timenan janjugi sem pain chembode yule kya khona yo mar malamte batamre baba.
So therefore, kind of doing our best every possible way in bringing kind of happiness and peace for oneself as well as for others. And the root of all of that kind of practices, as we are studying here, altruistic mind or bodhicitta. Again, as said before, the root of that altruism is compassion, as mentioned in the sutra ornament text. When you try to understand your own suffering and then generate this thought, I want to free myself from my own suffering, technically in Buddhism we call that is the renunciation. But when you, as said before, when you kind of direct that towards others, understanding suffering, cause of suffering of others, and wanting to free others from suffering, that is compassion. And so without kind of going through that process of compassionate understanding or practice, again it is kind of impossible to have practice and generation of altruistic mind.
오다 딘다와일라 이니베 냠len 제베이나 다지 펜도여보다 니지미 남잖아 펜도여보다 인상 생리 백kel인 거래스 시부지 펜도도즈를 숭도와 오다 딘디가랑 알아서 펜도 영인데 가서 둡둡지 미남짱니 양내도 저거 미쳐다 니지미 남짱기나 아니 랑 진진들라 또서 너그래 랑 진진을 치삼 뇌치니 셈레 구양래 그래 셈 톨레시 시차그래 치삼미 푸수도 보랑 진진슈 춤보 영에 미데 셈 푸수도 보 롱차보 애니페 미 장염던디 말햄바 땡땡 용거래 어다티 인디가라 셈 또서 랑 진진을 사무다이나 니지 사무다이나 랑 진진을 대왕기 자주기 셈길 귤리키야기 탑람지리 다 딘진생디 다양 견지리 맞아 넘버 2 바파기 초톱도 낭술데스 견지리 대올라 동이도베 로라 삼마다나 된다베 니페 초톱도 tum되게 로데 된 넘버즈메 딘진 로데 케 두고 말즈 송도 와스.
So therefore, kind of practice of compassion, trying to do in our daily life. Spending short time in the morning, visualize compassion and kind of generate compassionate thought. Is very beneficial, helpful. And nowadays we know this not from what we are saying based on Buddhism, but we know from a scientific, proven evidence and facts that these kind of positive emotions are really beneficial. So reflecting and contemplating a very short time morning, on compassion, it will help you to make your mind more kind of broaden, less narrow, and help you to reduce this strong, self-cherishing, egocentric thought, and helpful in reducing, easily to get angry and irritated and frustrated, and therefore all of those negative mentality will kind of create a gap between other beings, other human fellows. So thinking about compassion could be immensely beneficial in kind of reducing those negativities of emotions and bringing up and generating, altruistic mind, all those positive qualities of the mind. And the another big thing is, truth grasping. Grasping to truth is a big barrier. And as we have been talking in this class before, understanding, distorted or wrong understanding that things exist independently, inherently, objectively, and the best antidote here is understanding of emptiness. And without emptiness, we cannot kind of destroy, that kind of distorted view of how things exist.
What did you call it? Number Sangi, Yamlin Chagi, Lam Tapsing is a Yonya there. Shut up the Tongi to be shut up the two Tongi to be shut up. Sheraladam, Rameto be shut away, Mitabashara, so Tongi to be shut up there. Tongi to be shut up the Venzilan. Chanchuki Semtili, Ranchinzil and Ndigala, Zimbatini Wangi, Mazo Croachin Giore. Tini Mema Mazoporto. Crawler told to be a member Chadi. Tindigola, Chetan Lam Tapsi ni Yamlin Chewadi, teach the Yamlin Chewadi, what a Zimbati is or a tablam race, Tapsi race.
So in brief, in Buddhism we talk about practice of method and wisdom, and why there is this, everything kind of comes down into these 2 points. Method and wisdom is in order to destroy and counteract these 2 wrong apprehension. And under method, the main one is, we are talking here altruistic mind or awakening mind, bodhicitta. The bodhicitta will help us to kind of destroy this egocentric, self-cherishing thought. On the other hand, wisdom. Under wisdom, there could be many different levels of wisdom. But here we are talking about wisdom realizing emptiness, not other wisdom of understanding of impermanence or, so that wisdom of understanding of emptiness is direct again, opposite that will destroy truth grasping. So therefore, these 2, misapprehension, and to destroy those 2, we have method and wisdom.
What did you do? Kazan Jujene. Any Chanchuki Semde, Yi, any Tambo, Glum, Minam Cheni, Chite Saltep, Diton any, Ranjing to Matula, some pay, Pagi, Samutawena, Chanchuki Semgizobe, Tongin to the Tawala, Jagum Chigor, the Permissiva Carsoreta, Tapsi Niga, Yamlin Chaji, Unguar, those in Samutaina, Pentoyares, or Tamdala and Epe, Susu. Chick Pagi, Nilu Solne, Dijine, Diegone Chanchuki Semla, and Be Samadaina, Yansong to be Louis, and Be Minam Jamagone, Chanchuki Semla, Tabgichala, Digor, Zinja, Dusium Guare. Niga Luchila want to cure, Niga Tuchila want to curate your Marte, Tuchi the one Majurte, Majurnaya, Co, Nipa Maniam, Sem Nipa Maniamagone, Chanchuki Sem, Mayo. Yamlin Chevate, Tenden to war is. These Zinja to Sjalvore, Dulula.
Although we mentioned this before, but again, kind of, to repeat it, how can we do practice of, method and wisdom together, sort of at the same time? So you can start with kind of, visualizing and generating understanding of altruistic mind, awakening mind, or bodhicitta, and then having that sense not totally disappeared, and then moving on to the next understanding of how things exist in reality, understanding of emptiness. Then that becomes what we call analytical meditation, which is combination of both method and wisdom. On the other hand, you can start from analytical understanding first. Try to engage in the analysis. how things exist in reality, and without again kind of disappearing completely that kind of thought, you can move on to the next stage of generating altruism, awakening mind, and that is what we consider as happening at the same time. But as you know, however, it is impossible for ordinary mind to have both of these two manifested at the same moment. So therefore, when you are engaging in analysis, you should have sort of at the back of my mind still kind of thinking about altruism, and on the other hand, when you are actively thinking altruism, at the back of your mind you should still have some feeling or understanding of that emptiness. That's how we considered a method and wisdom combination.
What do sini gombaji gundu nyamlan chik mani ti kanchi tumbayina same thing go ne zimba chevena tabshi zungni mani dumbade tabshi zungro nyamlan na dugo ares I ne chembori de mado tabji zungani tab단다we 셔럽니 칭어 셔럽단다we tab니 칭어 좀 된데 랑그 송배 이 야탈소나 사지 연구 말이 냠는데라.
And with that kind of understanding or kind of method devoid of wisdom is a bondage. It will still keep you in cyclic existence. And likewise, wisdom, in the absence of method is also kind of bondage. It's a kind of incomplete.
What do see in the gala? Maranzo gundu 미상부제기 답람리 다 샘기대기 세디가 미상부제기 답람 때려마도 미상부시인데 간디시 연구거래 다티지 간디시 연구거잖아 젠라 펜바타 젠랑 이 디키데 미치기 데키로와 젠기 데키데 미 맘베 데키데 투시드가라 젠라 펜바타야데 다 미상 가르쳐다 다 장주기 셈이 냐면 쏘대 때 자고래 와다 데니 일리가라 단다 장주기 셈 시야대다 동이도 벨 따와서인데 냠는 좋아이나 상 지시 상마게 버도 냠는 지야때 반 때마다 요 말에 상게네 진든 지야대 니지 꾸닐라니 아니 니지기에네 배 가서는 리우도 마소나 샘전에 니링 매바 최대야다 윤체 매바 최대야 되죠 장주기 샘기 리우레스 송도와 아니 배 최답자에는 배 라테데 키루르지데 켐바용하데 동이도 배 럭이 젤레리스 디송도와 딘디가라 상기사나 다 거래 냠지 ngochi도 차와데 규전데 때 봐두고 와. 오다 상기 사마도 냠지 ngochi도 용해 거나요. 자신들 간에 아니베 군소비치 나야 거나 탈람이야 말에. 군소비치 나야인데가 송이도 송이라 냠버 자투야 거나요 말에. 딘디가라 상기 사나 디용에데 단단에 가서 람딩이 냠는 집아이나 아니 지지에네 상기 용도가라 디부티 론체 두고 알아서 딘디시 용고 알아서
Another kind of way of saying here is that when we talk about attaining happiness of the mind, we are talking about how to become a good person or a warm-hearted person, and for that practice, what is needed is generating this other cherishing thought and helping, benefiting others, and with the proper understanding of what do we mean by others, so in terms of numbers, others, you are just one and others are unlimited numbers, and it always makes sense to kind of benefit and serve and help in others, and so using many different logic and understanding, coming to this point of practice of generating other cherishing thought, and these two, method and wisdom, that we are saying before, method being altruistic mind and wisdom being understanding of emptiness, these two are practice that Buddhist practitioners practices until one attains enlightenment, and And these two still kind of functions, actively even after attaining enlightenment. And it is considered that once somebody is enlightened, able to teach continuously without any bias mentality, without getting tired, that is the result of practice of altruism. And on the other hand, having understanding of everything, what we call omniscient mind, is the result of that emptiness. And only at the level of enlightened mind, both understanding of conventional as well as absolute truth can happen manifested at the same time. That doesn't happen in the mind of ordinary people. So in order to kind of have that kind of experience or understanding, manifesting both understanding at the same time, we are trying to engage in practice, sort of imitate at this level of unenlightened stages.
Oda dusre date ga number sange bi chui nyamne jego kodun ko ba thartu de lam tharsin gina nyamne je asa tere da du suchine yundin ji cheba ina den mandaji den yongre oda dusre date yundi gala da khasan din ma phagi jo ina da ngone songin to be sharap sin de kanes jigule ki yeme ene zamotongmani yulgi nesa nelu imba 인상세 제파제상세 답에 디 순거래 다디 가보시부지래 와도 도시네 다디 디기리 다마 그산데는 삼데는 마 주어세도 로고스.
So in essence, we can say in Buddhist practice, what practitioners does is engage in these two, practice, method, and wisdom. And so going back to the, text that we are studying, we will continue with the reading, and the text, as you know, is talking about how to understand, emptiness and ways of analyzing, emptiness or reality of how things exist, which, as we were saying before, is a hard and difficult concept to understand.
야, 숨바 자 kenji chendu talwanis kanza chi ki phungbo ngachi kenji chepaltar kanza kyang kenji chekwelas ranjin ki tubi kenji chepi se ranjin chi da thate kanrun mindawi mindajin tik niga mirite di ta di rang tsingi ki tubi ranjin chi ina sendi tang Kiawanga me kanzal tabuang di nami ten meching chi dungyurjing se oda raj ta rajing ki tubai pa zembar tumna ta pathazu oda thalwaten yongdu se date sungware gyurjing te se nilta kanza tabu te ngarol doyang rangdang yuji be kanza shi par mason war gyurdes sengame kanza tang nami temi ji imbichirs rang yuji tang rangda yuji be sengame kanza tabu de mashi par dir khewar gyurde sendi kanza tang nami temi ji imbichir dini miride tabarn gyuru chirdes sashele kalte late mina delta wani tabarn gyuru oda chik oteniki enipe ta zembar tu chi na kyawanga chi enipe kyawanga ma de eni chima chi du thalu oda dus chini yongware eni ku ti yongya de zembar tu na ta khope ta den terzu jin chasolo ta ti sungware.
If you have the same book, it's on page 125. Page 125, the consequence of the selves being created and destroyed. And middle of the page, that long paragraph. The third fallacy So the fallacy is, if the self and aggregates are of one nature, then there are many, fallacies or, logical contradictions and problems. The third fallacy, if the self and aggregates are of one nature, reveals the consequences of the selves being created and destroyed. Just as the aggregates, which are asserted to be the same as the person, are created at birth and destroyed at death, so too would the person have to be created and destroyed. When what is created and destroyed exists inherently, the person and aggregates could not be anything other than of the same or different natures, and yet both of these would be unacceptable. So if they were inherently the same, each established by the way of its own characteristics, it would be as if the person of this and the previous life were the same without distinction. If that were the case, and you and the continuity of your previous life were the same, a person would have been born in this life without having died, because he would be inseparably one with the person you are in this life. It is unreasonable to make such a statement because the person would then be permanent. So basically he's saying that if self and aggregate exist inherently or independently or intrinsically, then there is no continuation of life. It should be remain exactly as it is without any changes. But however, that is not the case at all. There's a quote from fundamental treatise called Wisdom says, if that God were born as this man, such a person would be permanent.
Yeah. It's in Nachi Dipe Kanza Rang Tsini to be Rajinchi Rajin Tateina Tingila Dewa Mirunde, that been Dewa Merichis, or then Dewa that in Dewa, the Senjun in Dewa, Mochip in Dewa Sigurtat, that in Dewa, no Mochip in Dewa. Senjun Dewa, what had it, what the Tendig in Dewa Young Mare, so that Nosanchi Bare, called them to Vinas, Tabacha, Tabaina, who Mojim Dewa, Yontai on Maris, to Sungore, that the Karsad Rajibin Dewa Mete, Dingy Rajin, Tate Indichers. Other Yawang that Nipe Dingy and Rajin Tateri. Tenjung Dewa Mete, Dingy Chile, Ra Leper, Galvichers. Rajin Tubata, General Tuba, Galvicher. Other the one Rajin Git Tumna, General Tuba, Galvare, General Togu Marwa, Rajin Gitu, Koran wanted to be an Gula Togu Mare, Kenla Togu Mare, what a Tesungore. Tingal Rukudus. Tinitella Yuchip and Dewa Jadu Mirude, Telan Dewani Kan Mevich Jubale. Kanta Rang Sini Sosoa Teta Yuchi Tober Rimain Jeso Jesos Yuchi Maina What other
we'll take a break after reading this paragraph. End of page 125. If persons linked together by former and later lives were of a different nature, existing by way of their own characteristics, it would be impossible for there to be any connection between them. There would be no relationship in terms of the causes and results of actions between each self, because they would both be of different nature. Their arising would be unconnected, because they both, being inherently different, would contradict the dependence on one thing upon another, as the inherent existence of one thing contradicts its being related to something else. It is inappropriate to posit a relationship between them, because they share neither of the two relations, cause and effect, or being of the same entity. If persons were to exist inherently, they would have not to depend on anything else. But if something has relationship with anything else, it must also depend on something else. The supplement text says, whatever exists individually by the way of its own characteristics cannot possibly belong to one continuity.
다진del 저와들라 모집인 저와세 모 타데빈 저와스데 윤린 저와들에 어디 윤린 저와들아 모 타데빈 저와 어디도 수진이 지자고라 저와 니가 롱구미도 셀 숨어라 간제다
The two types of relationship. One is relationship with the same nature, and then there's another relationship. Relationship being of one entity and cause and effect. So, in Tibetan word, it seems it needs kind of explanation, but in English it is translated as according to the meaning. So two types of relationship. One is cause and effect relationship. The other is relationship of same entity. So both of these two relationship becomes kind of contradictions. We'll take a break here.